Hi guys. For today's lesson, we're going to be dealing with solving simple quadratic equations. So we're still going with our equations. Firstly, what is this quadratic equation word? Like, what does that mean? It means an equation which contains an x squared. So it's really important. This x squared is the main idea behind a quadratic function. For example, look at this equation right here. X squared plus 3 equals 12. Guys, this x squared here gives it away that it's a quadratic. All you need is this x squared in there and it's a quadratic equation. The next term I need you guys to be aware of is this plus or minus symbol. This symbol right here. So what we've got here is pretty much a symbol that represents both a plus and a minus at the same time, really. And I know that seems really strange to represent like plus and minus, which are opposites. How can you represent two opposite things at the same time? Well, the idea is, for example, if you look at this, plus or minus, plus, the way that we say this is plus or minus 3. And that means that you've got plus 3 and you've also got minus 3. You've literally got two different numbers here. So that's the idea. We're just writing two different numbers kind of together. So it's just a quick way of writing two separate numbers. And they're going to have the same sort of number, like both of these have a 3, but one's positive and one's negative. Okay, so moving on. The next term we need to know, you've probably heard this before, the square root. This is the symbol for the square root. It looks like a bit of a tick with a line going up the top. So the square root is the opposite operation of squaring. So see here we've got our square, and well, that's an operation, and this is the opposite of it. So this here and this here are opposites to each other. Okay, so the square root sign is cancelled by a square sign is cancelled by a square root sign. So these things pretty much cancel each other out. So you can see here I'm crossing out the 2 and I'm also crossing out this square root sign. So that's the idea. And when we cross the 2 and the square root sign out, it leaves us over with just our x, which wasn't crossed out. Okay, so let's go to a few rules to remember. So with these quadratic equations where you've got this x squared appearing, these equations have the potential to have either two solutions, one solution, or zero solutions. So it's a little bit confusing because you can have a different number of solutions for these quadratics. It's a maximum of 2, but it could also have 1 or 0. We know it has two solutions when we have this sort of situation, when we have x squared is equal to a positive number. We have one solution when we have x squared is equal to exactly 0. And we have 0 solutions when there should be a squared there, x squared is equal to a negative number. So these are the ideas. So it's really important that we make sense of this. I'll just get that squared back in. Okay, so example 1. Let's have a look at this first quadratic equation. So x squared equals 16. Now, I look at this and I think to myself, x squared equals, so I've got x squared by itself, which is good. And I see that it equals 16, which is a positive number. So therefore, this equation here is going to have two solutions. So the two solutions that we have are x is equal to a 4 and x is equal to a minus 4. And because it's positive and negative 4 as our answers, we can rewrite that like this, plus or minus 4. It's preferable that you do this because it's just quicker. The way that I got 4 is I square rooted this 16 because that's the opposite of squaring. So the square root of 16 is equal to 4. But you got to remember, plus or minus 4. Two solutions. The next example is this. So again, x squared equals, and then it equals 0. So when it equals 0, like up here, there's only one solution, and that is 0 itself. The idea there is if I square root 0, it stays 0, it doesn't change. Now, there's no need to put plus or minus 0 here. The reason is because positive and negative 0, it's just 0. Positives, plus and minuses don't apply to 0. 0 is neither positive nor negative. Okay, so example 3. Let's have a look at this one. So we've got x squared, good, equals a negative number. So when we get x squared equals a negative number, we need to remember to realize that there's 0 solutions happening here. So you're going to write something like x equals no possible solutions. Okay, so yeah, so you can't square root a negative number. If you literally try to put a square root of a negative number in your calculator, it's going to come up as syntax error in your calculator. So that's another way to remind you that you can't do it. You're going to get no possible solutions for your answer. Okay, so let's do some example questions. So first up, we've got x squared equals 81. So nice basic one. We've got our x squared by itself. Equals 81. I look at this and I think a positive number, so therefore there's going to be 2 solutions here. We need to get this x by itself. We need to somehow get rid of this squared right here. The opposite of squared is square root, as you can see here in pink. The square root of 81 is 9. And then we square root this and it leaves us over with just our x. The 2 and the square root cancel. The square root of 81 is 9, and because there's 2 solutions, you've got to remember plus or minus 9. You will lose marks if you don't put down the plus or minus symbol. Okay, next example. So this one here. Now, I know that I do see a 0 here, but I want to get x squared by itself first. I want to remove this square last. So firstly, get rid of your 3 by dividing both sides by 3. 0 divided by 3 is equal to 0 still. And now we've got the situation of x squared equals 0. When we have 0, we've got to think 1 solution. And square root of 0, both sides are square rooted. Square root of 0 stays 0. And we don't worry about the plus or minus. It doesn't apply to 0. So your answer is just 1 solution, and that is x equals 0. Question 3, we've got this equation here. We've got to think to ourselves, get the x squared by itself and then square root. So let's get rid of the plus 4 first by minusing 4 from both sides. Those 4's cancel. 0 take away 4 is minus 4, and the 4x squared comes down. Now let's have a look at this equation here. Let's get rid of this 4. So divide both sides by 4. Minus 4 divided by 4 is minus 1. And we've finally got x squared by itself. X squared equals a negative number. That suggests that there's going to be no solutions. And the reason is because when we try to square root this negative 1, it doesn't work. It gives us an error in our calculator. So that suggests that x equals no solutions. There are no answers that work. So good luck with the question.